Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. This is a video I would like to show and explain about how some of the defensive stats for tanks work, how boss encounters also affect your incoming damage, and as well I would like to explain a few changes I made from my previous tank build. So let's begin. Firstly, with my comparing my recent changes on my tank build, comparing the last video, I am still using the Enchanted Deathforge Armed, the Abyss Conqueror's Provoker's Crewcast, the new Prismatic Crystal Guard Gauntlets, the Boy Touch weapon set. I changed these Enchanted Deathforge grips, which they you gain a 3.75 awareness in deflect while you're at full health. I replaced them with the other boots, the Abyss Conqueror's Provoker's Crushers, which they give you 5% more defense when you are closer to your target. Depending on which one you would like to use, I also change the ones, some companion bonuses to keep my defensive stats balanced. I went with the Caldera set because it has more item level, and the weapon set, the complete set gives you 50% more threat. I recently checked the auction house and I thought that the Tiamat set was still a bit expensive. Oh, well, on PlayStation only the artifacts it's expensive, but the necklace and the waist are cheap. If in other, let's say, platforms it's kind of expensive, well, you can use the jewel of the Caldera set as a substitution. The difference between this one and the other one, okay, firstly it's between the Tiamat set, it's the item level, and you gain 8% reduction damage, and when your stamina it's reduced below 50%, I believe, you gain critical avoidance buff. So as tanks, the higher your item level, the more hit points you will get. So when you're starting to build your tank, when you're starting to do your build, I will leave everything for maximum hit points lastly, so you can focus on which your primary defensive stats are defense, awareness, critical avoidance, deflect, and severity. As I explained on previous video, they work together, and I will tell you sometimes why it's not a good idea just to build your build on just build it within these two. Since the combat changes, the item level and everything, there is a formula here that your hit points are measured. Hit points measure your ability to survive damage. Your base maximum hit points are your total item plus 10. Tank roll gains 20% extra base maximum hit points, and healer rolls gains 10% extra base maximum hit points. As a paladin, I have both specs as a healer or a tank, but as a tank I have the 20% extra maximum hit points. Your damage is based also again on your item level, which has a formula there, and during boss encounters, as you know, tanks are specifically, as the name says, are built to have more survivability than the rest of your group members. That's why you need as much as hit points possible, but also it goes with hand with your defense stats. Sometimes there are players who actually build their have their build around hit points, where they try to increase it as much high as possible, but their defense stats are lowered. What's the issue with this? Bosses will hit you more harder, and since you have a huge pool of hit points, the healer will have any difficulties to keep you alive, because if you let's say if the boss hits you for 1 million and the healer is trying to avoid some mechanics or anything, the next hit will hit you for another million, let's say. So the healer will have difficulties to keep you alive, and it will burn either their Soul Weaver, their Performers, or their Divinity, depending on which healer you have on your group. That's why with these three, each one comes from different resources. Defense, well, it's general, which the defense decreases your damage taken. This is general. Awareness comes from when enemies have combat advantage on you. This means when they flank you, you have one enemy, let's say, on your back, and you have another enemy in front of you. This became very important since the combat changes, because before you used to have the boss in front of you, so it never had combat advantage at you. So awareness was kind of weak stat during that time. But since during any boss encounters, bosses will have combat advantage on you. So this one is also important to decrease your enemy's damage when being attacked from combat advantage. So it doesn't matter which way you face the boss as a tank, you will have combat advantage. This applies for you and your party members. Critical avoidance helps you reduce your incoming damage when the enemy makes a critical hit on you. As the description says, decreases the damage of a critical hit landed by an enemy. This means that as a DPS or a tank, bosses also have all these powers, all these stats. Actually, any boss, I'm sure that they will have their cap rating and their full stats to max. So if a boss has increased power, the defense will counter its power. If you have awareness, it will counter the combat advantage from the boss. If you have critical avoidance, it will counter the critical severity that does to you when critical strike. As a DPS, whenever you have your critical strike at max, every time you critical strike, you will do a critical severity, which increases the damage dealt or healing done on a critical hit. This means when a boss critical hits you, this particularly defensive stuff will reduce that critical severity. As I mentioned before, it's not a good idea to have your build based on these two. One, deflect. Whenever you deflect, increases the chance that you will deflect an incoming damage. This is the opposite of an accuracy, that decreases your enemy's reductions to the damage of your deflected attacks. So whenever this one is high as a DPS, it is less likely that the boss will deflect it, so you will do more damage. As a tank, you will deflect this incoming damage. And whenever you deflect any incoming damage, deflect severity will trigger. So whenever you deflect, if this one is higher, it will deflect the incoming damage. Let's say if you deflect a 1 million incoming damage, it will be reduced by, depending on this number, since I have it at 50%, it will be reduced by 50%. So I will be deflecting 500,000 damage. Before I forget, I also mentioned before, depending on your build, you can still use your Abyss Conqueror's Provocative Blast, which increases your power and awareness by 10%. And you can, play with other stats companions, so balance your stats. Sorry for that. So going back, whenever you have, let's say, if you build over deflect and you have 90% deflect, and you have these three lowered, since this one it's never 100%, that 10% can be very important, because if this is based on RNG, but if the boss lands a critical hit on you in that 10%, it will kill you if you don't have these three really high. So that's why I'm using these three. mostly because there are always constant, and deflect it's based on energy. Uh, let's say, yeah, that's it. So defense, awareness, and critical are your primary. Deflect it's the last one because this one triggers with this one. So if you've seen my latest videos, I'm currently using this build. You can notice how much damage I'm receiving or how much damage it's reduced because of this. Sorry, the flexibility also has the new stat which can go by 10k more based on your item level, so I can cap this at 120k. Also, the defense is another stat that can cap at 120k. This one I have it lower because I don't have any buffs yet, so I can use my food from the stronghold, the potion defense ranked 13, the elixir to increase it, and if your healer has the runic aura, I can also help you cap this defensive stat. Moving forward, some players have asked me if flash freeze is not better than fortitude nature, because the flash freeze, when it has a different bonus, I will show you now. The flash freeze is when you equip it, you still have a reduction damage by 10%, but on receiving damage, you have a 20% chance to apply a 20% slow and a 5% reduction outgoing damage to the target. This effect lasts 8 seconds and stacks 3 times. As you can see, you have a 20% chance. Why is this not reliable on boss encounters? Because it's based on RNG. Let's say if it's a 20%, for every 5 hits the boss hits you, it should trigger on 1. But let's say during this 4 or 5 it doesn't trigger, well, you have to wait until it triggers. But let's say if it triggers on the first one and doesn't trigger on the 4th one or 5th one, you can lose your stacks. That's why this one, it could be good to be used on AoE builds, because you have a lot of enemies that surrounds you, and you have a better chance when more enemies have it, they hit you, so you have a better chance to trigger. And besides, the 20% slow doesn't affect bosses. Remember that boss encounters, all of them are immune to control effects. So this one, it's good. You can use it in AoE builds, or when you're pulling trash or clearing the dungeon, but never against bosses. Now, regarding the fortitude nature, this one is always active during combat, because once per second when you're receiving damage, each hit stacks 3.6 increase to your defense, awareness, and deflect for 3 seconds. This effect can stack a maximum of 5 times and refreshes the duration with its new stack. When reaching and maintaining 5 stacks, you are healed for 6 seconds for your maximum health, and this effect can only occur once every 30 seconds. Well, the bonus is extra, but this one helps a lot to increase 3 defensive stats: defense, awareness, and deflect. And each hit between boss encounters, it doesn't last like more than 3 seconds for the boss to hit you. So this one, it's also good to increase your hit points. Now let's say, yeah, someone did a comment that on the booms they're using this one. Lingering medicine increases effectiveness of healing potions 1% per rank. But I didn't notice that at rank 5, so you place 5 booms here, you have a chance for your healing potion or a Halo Stone, which tanks are using most of the healing stones during boss encounters, to continue heal you for 30 seconds, which is a huge, honestly, it's a huge boost. I didn't notice these changes because all of these 3, they had a different bonus. I remember I never noticed the changes. So the other 2 the tier 3 says at rank 5 adds a chance for your healing potion or something to increase your maximum hit points for 30 seconds, and the other one increases your power. So it's very useful to go just with one because it will keep you healing for 30 seconds. I honestly haven't tested out how much hit points you are healed per second, so I will try it out. I will have to switch something here, or maybe when I get the new 4 booms I will replace this power and put them here, and I will check it out to see if it's worth it, and I will let you know. Maybe I will update the description of the video and add it there, so you guys can check it out. As I told you, between the companion bonuses, since I changed a few things from my gear, depending on what you have, if you change, let's say these ones for the defense, you can change something here to add more awareness to your defensive stats. But between Regis, there are 2 companions that can give you an extra bonus because they stack, which is Regis, and the other one it's Brunner. If you have 2 of them, their power is increased, their bonus is increased, because these ones are from the Dark Allegiance companion pack. It's Cathy Brew, someone named Wolf, I think, and Dritz. But I believe these 2 are the only ones that have defensive stats. So if you put them, you can add an extra percentage to your stats. So it's very useful. But I'm going with my Bony Wisdom, which increases critical avoidance and defense. As I said before, utility power as tank, there are a few options you can add, but the only one that it's fully universal is the Golden Crypt Crow's Present, which it's the awareness percentage, and it can go anywhere. But this is how my build is. I'm still using, as well, I forgot to mention that as a tank or a healer you will always need to use supportive companions. You can go with Dredge, which increases 3% power to your group members. Flapjack gives a 5% combat advantage. Black the Scorpion, it's always good for someone to have it because you will always have combat advantage on your target. Tutor, which is also another 5% of combat advantage. These 2 stack. Spine Devil, which also applies a 10% debuff ingoing damage or increases damage to your target, and the Minotaur, which also it's very good for, let's say, AoE when you have a lot of adds to control, because this one pulls the enemies to the companion, then they stun them, and it's very good for controlling areas. Like, for example, this is very useful when facing the second boss encounter of the Master Demon Weapons, where he usually spawns a lot of enemies. Armor Break as well. You can also have any other supportive group members to go to reduce the awareness of the enemy, or the critical avoidance, or something to boost your damage on the enemy. I'm using Boss Swarm. You can also rely or change depending on the situation with Mythic, the Rex mount, or you can go with the Magnificent Inspiration. It will also depend on the situation you are using, so you always have to sort out your mounts, powers, and artifacts with all your group members. I didn't change this at all. I'm still having my 3 Guardian Spirits and 2 Protector's Covenant to increase my defensive stats and able to cap them. Hopefully I don't forget anything. I also hope this video is useful to anyone to understand, either as DPS, healer, or tank, how these powers work, and how the defensive work, and how the boss attacks works. Also, now I remember, when you have this kind of buffs, reduces incoming damage by certain percent. as this is how I understand it, and I believe how it works. That 9% applies. I believe it applies to all these three stats. So either you don't see them here, but it should be it should apply to your when you have incoming damage, combat advantage, or critical. It should apply. So having that 9%, having the bonus from this weapon set that it's a minus 5% incoming damage, where the buffs is another 6%, that's another 6, so it's going to be 11 plus 9, it's almost 20% reduction damage. I think I have another one I mentioned. Oh yeah, I have the mythic, the combat enchantment also have another 12% reduction damage. So overall it's 32% reduction damage. If you have the Tiamat set, that's another 8. So in total it's 40% reduction damage. So as I believe, so how that works is that 40%, depending how much reduction damage you have, it should apply on all three. So having all these three defensive high enough, plus as much of reduction damage you can have, it will help you survive as much as possible. Because as a tank, it's important to be alive. You are a tank, as the name is always suggested. You are the one that has to get, hard hits on you, so no one else does. That's all. Hopefully now this time I don't forget anything. If I remember, I will post a description or add comments. If you have suggestions, anything you would like to know, please comment. If you like the video, like it. And lastly, I would like to also give a big thanks to all my subscribers. And this might be my last video for this year. I hopefully post more, but without any voice chat. And I wish you everyone happy holidays, happy Christmas, and a happy New Year. Best wishes for everyone. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.